Welcome to the Global War Watch Network, the reporter who cried on camera, but was it all for the story? Here's what you didn't hear about Gaza's most controversial journalist. Let's uncover the truth behind Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif. Journalism or propaganda? Today, we're taking a close look into a story that, well, it really captured global attention and sparked a pretty fierce debate. We'll be navigating through the different perspectives, exploring the claims, the counterclaims, and what his case tells us about the often, frankly, perilous environment for journalists working in conflict zones.
That's right, and it's crucial to understand this isn't just about one person. It's really about getting to grips with these complex narratives that always seem to emerge when a journalist is operating in one of the world's most dangerous places. His story reveals some profound truths about reporting during wartime. We'll examine the specific allegations made against him, how his network, Al Jazeera, and press freedom groups responded, and maybe touch on the broader implications for, how information gets out.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself. Let's really unpack who Anas al-Sharif was and why his work resonated so profoundly with so many people. He was an Al Jazeera correspondent, known for his really intense on-the-ground reporting from Gaza. He focused particularly on the relentless Israeli bombardment and that escalating hunger crisis that was gripping the population up in the north. He wasn't just reporting from a distance. He was clearly living that reality alongside the people he covered.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is just how quickly he became such a crucial source, an unfiltered source of information for the world, especially, given the heavy restrictions on international media getting into Gaza.
Yeah.
Al Jazeera consistently highlighted this, saying he and his colleagues were, and I'm quoting here, among the last remaining voices from within Gaza, providing the world with unfiltered, on-the-ground coverage of the devastating realities endured by its people. He actually started reporting for Al Jazeera pretty soon after the war broke out, and his commitment to conveying the truth, at least as he saw it, seemed unwavering, even when facing immense daily danger.
And it was precisely that unfiltered reality that led to this incredibly powerful and honestly heartbreaking moment on air. Back in July, Anas al-Sharif was live, reporting on the dire starvation situation. And as he spoke, a woman, visibly suffering from hunger, just collapsed right there behind him on camera. He didn't look away. He didn't cut the feed. Instead, he turned straight to the camera, his voice thick with emotion, and he said, "I am talking about slow death of those people." That moment.
Wow. It was so raw, so unscripted, it instantly transformed him into this powerful human voice for the besieged territory. It resonated globally. You could literally see the personal toll it was taking on him right there, live.
It's such a stark illustration, isn't it? The human cost of conflict, not just on civilians, but on those who have to bear witness to it every single day. His reports weren't just, dry facts. They carried the immense weight of direct experience. And this case powerfully shows how in modern conflict, the journalist's identity itself can become a contested narrative. The very act of reporting becomes a kind of battleground for truth. That's a crucial point, because while Anas al-Sharif was being hailed by many as this brave, essential journalist, Israeli authorities were painting a starkly different picture. And this is where the core controversy really kicks in.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a classic conflict of narratives, something we see so often in war zones. Israeli authorities, including military officials and spokesperson Avichai Adre, they released a video, I believe it was July 24th, 2025, asserting that Anas al-Sharif had actually led a Hamas cell and that he was, in fact, a member of Hamas's military wing. Now, they had also previously accused him and other Al Jazeera journalists, this goes back about a year before his death, of being members of both Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which is, another distinct militant group, though sometimes allied. The military even stated it had previously targeted individuals they described as Hamas militants posing as reporters. So this framing immediately put al-Sharif and others like him under intense scrutiny. It portrayed them not as neutral observers, but as active participants in the conflict.
All right, so those are incredibly serious claims, a direct challenge to his credibility and to Al Jazeera's as well. So the immediate question is, how did Anas al-Sharif and his network push back against these assertions? What was their response?
Well, Al Jazeera and al-Sharif himself vehemently dismissed these allegations. They called them baseless, entirely fabricated. And then there was this profoundly poignant, almost heartbreaking, pre-planned moment. Anas al-Sharif apparently had a social media post ready to go out after his death, posthumously. In it, he wrote, "I never hesitated for a single day to convey the truth as it is, without distortion or falsification." He added, "I have always been and will continue to be for the truth, even if it costs me my life." I mean, that's powerful personal testament to his perceived commitment. And press freedom advocates, people like the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, Irene Khan, and the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, they described these allegations as a smear campaign. And they noted, importantly, that this campaign seemed to intensify significantly right after his emotional on-air broadcast where he cried, which naturally raises questions about the timing and the intent behind it all.
So you have this intense pressure, these accusations flying back and forth, the ongoing danger, and Anas al-Sharif's unwavering presence on the ground. It all tragically reached this devastating conclusion. On Sunday, August 10th, 2025, Anas al-Sharif was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. He was only 28 years old.
Yes. The strike targeted him and others while they were sheltering just outside Gaza City's largest hospital complex, Shifa Hospital. And Shifa, as you probably know, has frequently been right at the center of conflicting narratives and intense fighting throughout this conflict. It's been a real focal point.
A symbolic location in many ways.
Absolutely. And tragically, this single strike didn't just kill al-Sharif. It also killed his colleague, fellow Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammed Kreke, 4 other journalists, and 2 additional people sheltering there. Hospital officials confirmed these deaths the next day, Monday, August 11th. It painted a truly grim picture of the immediate aftermath.
Al Jazeera's reaction was swift and strong. They immediately called the strike a targeted assassination. They went further, directly accusing Israeli officials of incitement, and they explicitly linked al-Sharif's death to those prior allegations of him being a militant. It was, in their view, a direct consequence of that smear campaign you mentioned.
And this immediately brings up a really important and quite sobering question about the overall environment for journalists trying to work in Gaza right now. Brown University's Watson Institute, back in April of this year, made a really striking assessment. They stated that this war was, and I quote, quite simply, the worst ever conflict for reporters.
The worst ever. Think about the weight of that statement, considering the history of war reporting.
Exactly. And the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, reported on August 11th, the day after al-Sharif's death. They reported that at least 192 journalists have been killed in Gaza during this conflict.
192. That number is just staggering.
It is, and that includes 11 Al Jazeera staff journalists and 8 freelancers working for them. Al Jazeera itself has suffered incredibly heavy losses. Other staffers like Ismail al-Ghul and Rami al-Rifi were killed last summer. Freelancer Hossam Shabat was killed back in March. And it's crucial to note here, Shabat, much like al-Sharif, had also been accused by Israel of being a member of a militant group. So you see a potential pattern emerging, or at least a repeated narrative.
Just pause for a moment and consider the profound impact of a number like 192 journalists killed. What does that actually mean for the information we receive, or perhaps more importantly, don't receive, from a place like Gaza? The reality is, international media have been largely barred from entering Gaza independently, which makes Al Jazeera one of the very few major outlets with a large team still managing to provide that on-the-ground coverage. Amidst relentless airstrikes, deepening hunger, neighborhoods just turned to rubble. And add to that immense pressure, Al Jazeera is blocked in Israel itself, and its offices in the occupied West Bank were raided and ordered closed last year. It's an almost impossible situation for them to operate in.
And it's also worth highlighting a really stark contrast here, just hours before the airstrike that killed al-Sharif and the others. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was defending a planned military offensive into Gaza, and he stated publicly that he directed the military to bring in more foreign journalists to the area.
Bring in more journalists.
Exactly. That statement exists in such sharp contrast to the reality and the dangers faced by the journalists already on the ground, who are clearly vulnerable and, as those numbers tragically show, dying at an absolutely unprecedented rate. It really prompts you to question the intent behind such statements versus the lived, deadly reality for reporters there.
So when journalists are targeted or perceived to be targeted in this way, especially in a conflict zone, what are the broader implications, not just for the immediate reporting, but for things like international law, accountability, and just our global understanding of what's happening?
Oh, the implications are profound.
Yeah.
And deeply worrying. The UN Special Rapporteur, Irene Khan, again, she made a very strong statement back on July 31st. She asserted that the killings were, in her words, part of a deliberate strategy of Israel to suppress the truth, obstruct the documentation of international crimes, and bury any possibility of future accountability.
That's a heavy accusation from a UN official.
It is. And the UN Human Rights Office went even further after the strike on al-Sharif. They condemned it as a grave breach of international humanitarian law. Now, these aren't just strong words. They carry significant weight within the framework of international law. Law which is specifically meant to protect non-combatants, including journalists, in conflict zones. When those protections are perceived as eroding or being deliberately ignored, it sets an incredibly dangerous precedent globally.
And it wasn't just UN officials raising the alarm.
No, not at all. The Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, and other press freedom groups describe these deaths as retribution against those documenting the war in Gaza.
Okay.
And Ahed Ferwana from the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate asserted that reporters were being deliberately targeted and pleaded for the international community to act. This really highlights a grave concern, that reporting itself is becoming an act of extreme peril. It's not just the inherent risk of being caught in crossfire anymore, but potentially being specifically targeted because of the information you provide.
So the act of bearing witness becomes punishable.
Precisely. And that's why Amnesty International has explicitly called for an independent, impartial investigation into the killings of Palestinian journalists. They're underscoring the vital need for accountability in these incidents, not just for the victims and their families, but to uphold the very principles of international law and press freedom. And it's hard to even imagine the personal sacrifice involved, being separated from your family for months on end. We heard stories about how al-Sharif and Mohammed Craig's children barely recognized them when they had brief reunions. This immense personal toll, which often goes unseen by the public, is a constant reality for these journalists who choose to stay and report. The constant threat, the personal loss. It takes an enormous emotional and psychological toll on those who remain and continue this vital work under such extreme conditions.
It really is remarkable. And given all that pressure, that Anas al-Sharif's own final message, apparently written just minutes before his death, as he reported on a nearby bombardment, that it serves as such a powerful testament to his dedication, despite everything. He bemoaned the devastation of war, he bid farewell to his family, all while affirming his unwavering commitment to the truth. It's just a snapshot, isn't it, of the profound courage and sacrifice we're talking about here. So, as you consider these conflicting narratives surrounding Anas al-Sharif's reporting and his tragic death, we invite you, our listeners, to reflect on this. In a world absolutely inundated with information, yet so often lacking direct, independent access to conflict zones, whose narrative ultimately gets to become the official record, and at what immeasurable cost to those brave individuals who try to report the truth from within. Thank you for joining us for this discussion today. We really hope you found this exploration informative and maybe a bit thought-provoking.
Yes, thank you. Your engagement truly makes a significant difference in keeping these important conversations going.
Please, if you appreciate this content and what we do here, take just a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the Global War Watch Network. It helps us immensely.
We'd also genuinely love to hear your thoughts and insights on this complex issue. Please share them in the comment section below.
And you can connect with us on social media, too. All the links are provided right there in the description. Until next time, stay informed.